Welcome to another episode of Mindful Drawing. I'm Rooks Fun, and I'll be your guide on these meditation practices that use drawing as a way to enter into our body space, enter into a creative space, and express some of those internal sensations and meditations through the act of drawing. Today we'll be focusing on finding a space of grounding, establishing our contact with that interface that supports us, and extending out our roots through our sensations, through our nerves, and through our imaginations of what exists deeper into that space around us. We'll use that to guide a little bit of fun and creativity in drawing down from that ground plane, branching out, connecting, and creating a space of resiliency, of connection, and openness. You won't need anything special to follow along, just listening, being in a comfortable space, a pad of paper or sheet or something to draw on, pen or pencil, and a little bit of time. If this sounds interesting, go ahead and gather your supplies and let's draw together. I'll just start on a piece of scrap paper or something, or a page in the sketchbook. I just have some note card things before I go onto a larger format page there. Mostly it's kind of a listen and follow along with the pen or pencil. You can look at what I'm doing if you like, or just let it guide you in wherever you go. But I was thinking today to use the meditation and practice to kind of get out of our minds a little bit, into the body a little bit more, and really focus on the grounding or rootedness of our position, of our feet. And that can start with, on the page, on the scrap as a warm-up, somewhere near the top, maybe about a quarter of the way down, some kind of organic, moving, bumpy, wobbling line, something that starts to track how your feet may feel on the ground or in your shoes or in the air, wherever they're at, or focusing in on any part of you that has that connection to the base, to a foundation or a rooting. I might draw a couple of those for our warm-up, thinking, is it smooth and hard or soft, open? Just letting the line reflect a little bit of that texture close to the body, or that feel close to the nerves. And in our larger format drawing, that line will become our base, our ground, that will extend from reaching down through that visual and metaphorical rooting into the ground. So it's a bit of a practice and intro to the technique. Idea, no special technique here, just picking a place that speaks to you along the curve, something that might dip or bubble, and beginning to let some root tap down into the ground, straight or wobbly, smooth or branching. Just the first one, reaching from that base of your feet downwards. We'll dig more into that connection in the longer exercise, but now just getting a sense of where it might go, what starts to feel comfortable in the hand and moving the pen or pencil as you extend from some base, perhaps a point, perhaps a little distributed, into a foundation or rooting into the ground. And that's where we'll spend most of the time in the exercise, with the end portion seeing where our imagination takes us up above that rooted under. Take a few moments to kind of establish your body and your space, find whatever it is from yourself that is the grounding or the rooting, whether that's your seat or your feet. Bring some attention there. Make sure it's in a comfortable place where it can be for 15 to 20 minutes. that focus and attention on it. And if it gets fatigued or bothers you, you can always move around and reflex. But again, on a new page or a fresh sheet of paper, bringing that line with attention to your grounding, attention to your seat or your feet, across the page. For me, my feet are bare on a wood floor, so generally smooth, but I can feel ups and downs of pressure. A little change between the gaps of how I might be sitting, my orientation or a twist. And as I draw the line, and I use that attention to that part in my body, the soles of my feet or my seat on the chair, to relax it a little bit, maybe adjust if you need to wiggle them around and find stability. And you can draw that line multiple times to work through this. I think I'll do a few very close, tight layers to it. Just working out that connection between myself and what supports me. Seeing if I'm holding any tension there and feeling my feet a little anticipation and getting set up the time before this, just moving into place, letting some of those pinches and pulls in the skin relax, wiggling and lifting the toes a little bit, rocking the seat back and forth a little bit. And on the next line across, we'll let that be a place of expression of the breath, breathing in at the start, and in that relaxation of the grounding, letting the breath out. And when it reaches its conclusion, drawing it in again, keeping the pen or pencil moving gradually and letting it out. Finding movement in the relaxing of the interface and connection with our support. Finding relaxation of that meeting of two worlds, the inside sensation of our nerves and those exterior materials, conditions. And as we work through the drawing and the practice, you may find sensitivities, subtle changes in temperature, tactility to bring that attention to. In the next phase, taking a nice open breath in as we conclude any movement or drawing and prepare for the next. And just let it out, smooth. Establishing that space with the sound of our breath. And then using the eyes to find a potential location of grounding on that line. For me, I have a nice flat area that I'll go with. And after the next in-breath, locating the pen along there and allowing the first roots to extend down on the page, as well as extend out from your mind through the body, perhaps even closing the eyes, through the seat or through the feet, into that medium that supports you. Extending ourselves outward, reading that extension through the feedback of the connection to our nerves in the bottom of our feet, to our sitting bone. Letting the pen be the guide for your attention to reach down into the earth into the wood, carpet, into the upholstery, finding new places along that curve to branch and extend those roots outwards, to let the roots dig deeper, to let them wind and work their way horizontally, vertically extending from that point of contact. And you may feel with a single point some place of acuteness, a place that can draw your mind out of your head and into that space of the ground contact, into that moment of rooting, finding that spot for really tuning our attention and our focus, giving it some space to influence the movement as our attention draws into it. You may find some vibration, some even like jitter as we try to hold on to something fine in that space of our mindfulness. And if it begins to wobble or jump or bring tension into that space, taking a nice breath in, an expansion of the lungs and the upper torso, drawing away some attention for a moment, and on the gradual exhalation, letting things settle down without fully losing the attention to the place of contact, but letting it calm. And we can let that area begin to expand, perhaps through the roots as they branch, reach to new locations, to soften the attention from a point out to a circle or a rough area, something framed by the oscillations of our breath, breathing in to gradually soften the attention to that contact, and out to let it come back into the foreground as our body relaxes into the space. See if that area of attention can expand to encompass a whole side, perhaps a whole foot, or a whole portion of one leg. Those roots expanding out, feeling the support of what's around us, of the environment broadening, bringing us stability, bringing us contact, letting loose a need for maintaining control in that connection, letting the body loosen and sink in to the ground that supports, letting that sinking create a rooting foundation. Foundation supported from below, from the outside, and supported from within with our breath, our practice, and mindful attention to the opening up of that contact. Some of these rooting visual metaphors extending broadly, others reaching deeply, reflecting the sensation of our nerves outward, mental or visual extension beyond the body. Perhaps things of the material you're connected with come into mind. The seeing of the fibers in the wood, the subtle feeling of the textures of a carpet or upholstery. Those imagined and sensed influences gradually shaping some of what we might draw or see, visualize there. Wood with its grain, kind of general repeated but flowing directionality. Textiles weaving, crossing, overlapping, giving guidance to the movement of our hand, freed for a moment here from our mind's guidance and open to the body's sensations, their interpretation, and whisper back to our imagination. Reinforcing and entering into that rooting connection with our grounded place. Finding a grounding of ourself. And opening up a space for action in the drawing. As we spend more time there, attention, fatigue can slip in and the mind begins to wander some into these imaginings, deeper stories connected with something we might see in our drawing. Space of roots of a tree, maybe a diagram of things growing underfoot, under the soil, the imaginings of the material we contact, of branches, feathers, and filigree. Again, quietly those drift in, and we can let that attention to the interface, the foot or the seat there, drift away. Let the new space opened in the drawing pull us in. Our now shifted practice from the awareness of our senses and feeling of the physical around us into a more virtual space of the drawing, something created, synthetic, but already established there on the page, filling the blankness, opening up opportunity, patterns, or other guides to follow, continuing to develop density, entanglement of those branching, reaching roots, holding broad and extending deep, reinforcing foundation, looking at our connection to a groundedness, to relaxation, as something resilient, complex, many paths to follow, many tendrils holding that space for us. When one feels stressed, tracking along to reinforce it, to connect it with neighbors, to use the support of the many as a way to balance ourselves. And if the page is becoming very dense or heavy, thick, or you're having any kind of resistance to finding new places to draw curves, it becomes more difficult to parse overlaps and connections potentially. You can use that as a cue to let this new territory we've developed inspire new reading, perhaps by reinforcing curves that attract your eye, thickening some of the roots, tapping deep into the page with a few successive layers or expansions, letting some dig deeper down to bundle, strengthen. Perhaps some of the horizontal ones grab deeper through repetition, bringing them forward from the many into branches of our strengths, branches that attract the eye, attract the sensation of that moving hand with the pen or pencil, guide our flow. These roots that establish our connection to the world. The others branching from them, supporting them. And then as that foundation strengthens, intensifies the connection to that page, brings forward line and figure, we can drift back upwards from this foundation played to the connection to that horizontal ground and what might grow out from it. This a time for 5 minutes or so of just quiet drawing and exploration, continuing the roots or perhaps extending up the base or trunk of some tree, perhaps letting your feet or seat grow from that moment and influence what emerges above. Anything playing in the space that you have there. Final couple of minutes here, beginning to let the mind wrap up where you are drawing with the complexity of many lines of density, give you that space and openness just to let the pencil or pen make its few final marks and then come to rest. More will not be more finished or less finished. The many lines formed as part of the practice. As you feel ready to let that pen or pencil come down and Give your hands a rest. Spend the last couple of moments just taking a few breaths in, letting the hands join in perhaps on the paper or something near you as part of that final engagement with the grounding and rooting extension. A big breath in, and on the out breath, bringing the attention to all the contact points, the hands, the arms, the feet, the legs, the seat, the back. Another breath in, and the breath out, letting all those places drop heavy into their contact. A couple deep breaths, sinking in a little bit more, just feeling what's there in your space as you come back into it, maybe beginning a little bit of movement, rocking to wake things up. And then on the next breath or two, letting them lighten, maybe lifting the hands off or the feet off. You can even readjust in the seat. And returning to your space, preparing yourself to enter the next part of the day. Returning back to this world above from that time imagined in our extending roots below. Hope this can bring you a bit of relaxation, a bit of meditation on your own connection, resiliency, support, and network of rooting out there in the world. A little bit of attention to how you establish your space, your posture, your connection to your seat and your feet on the ground, and hopefully open up a little bit of a space of creativity. If you like what we do here with the mindful drawing practices, please give it a thumbs up below. Leave us a comment and tell us what you explored through your drawing. You can always share images at Rooks'Fun on Instagram, and most weeks follow along live via Twitch or through the Mindful Prat website in our mindfulness drop-ins. Thank you for joining, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Draw well. This is Rooks'Fun, signing off.